Welcome. Today we will have a toxicology case discussion. Dr. Vivek is going to present a case. Shall we start, Vivek?
Yes, okay. A 32-year-old male was rolled into our ER with a alleged history of ingestion of some insecticide. With the short history from our EMTs who have brought the patient, he had consumed an organophosphorus compound, mixing it with cool drinks at 7:30 a.m. Following which he was taken to nearby hospital where they have given gastric lavage and they have referred patient to us. Our initial 10-second assessment, patient was conscious, oriented, obeying to our commands, able to complete one full sentence. Then we proceeded with the parallel assessment of primary survey. Before that, since we are sure that patient have received GI decontamination and skin decontamination from our outside hospital, we are proceeding with our airway management. In airway management, patient's airway is patent, no secretions are present, no gurgling sounds. His breathing, respiratory rate is 22 cycles per minute, no abnormal pattern noted. Saturation at this point is 98% in room air. In circulation part, BP is 140 on 90 millimeters of mercury. All peripheral pulses are equally felt. Capillary refilling time is 2 seconds. Going to disability,
Pulse rate
is 98 on arrival to emergency room. In disability, his GCS is E4, V5, M6. Pupils are 3 millimeter reacting to light. His exposure and temperature is 98.7 degree Fahrenheit. His GRBS initially is 138 milligram per deciliter. From this, we proceeded with our adjuncts for our primary survey.
Okay, let's break at this point. So we have an 32-year-old male who has been brought in with an alleged history of consumption of some unknown pesticide, and he had received some first aid measure from an outside hospital and he was referred to you. So as an emergency physician in the department, what all instructions you will give to your paramedical team while receiving this patient?
Yes, sir. Our paramedical team who is going to receive the patient, first thing we'll use full personal protective equipment, sir.
Okay.
Preferably rubber glove. If rubber glove is not available, double glove we will prefer, sir. Then
these points are very important. That's what I wanted to emphasize. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Then gloves and goggles we have to use, sir.
Okay.
Then whatever dress the patient is using, we have to take it, place in a airtight bag and keep it for analysis for further purposes,
okay.
Sir.
If toxicology analysis and all those forensic medical legal aspects, we can keep that aside, and the most important thing is that it can get absorbed through the skin also. So the patient, the bystanders or the attenders or paramedics, whoever is going to attend that patient, can get this pass through the skin. So that is the most important thing. Even if they have already done the decontamination, it is always better to go ahead and wear all the PPE and receive the patient. That will be the ideal thing. So and after he receives to the emergency room, you go ahead with your primary survey. Let's imagine he has come directly to you. He has not gone to any other peripheral center. He has come to you. So what all things you will do?
Yes, sir. If we have received our patient here, means when taking the patient, with our personal protective kit, we will receive the patient and we will take the patient to decontamination room. We will remove his clothes. We will give our clothes. Then we will give a thorough body wash. And from there itself, if possible, we will take for GI contamination, GI samples for toxic analysis. From then,
see, a decontamination room means it is not just a room where you need to wash the patient. The decontamination room ideally should have all the facilities. It should be, you need to ventilate the patient, you should be able to ventilate the patient, intubate the patient, all resuscitation have to happen. So whenever we say regarding decontamination room, in our mind it will be just a wash area. This should not be a wash area. There should be a central oxygen supply. Everything should be made available in a decontamination. That will be an ideal decontamination room. All the antidotes should be made available. You should have the ideal gastric lavage tube. Everything should be made available. So just taking him to somewhere to wash and just bringing him, it's not an ideal decontamination. A decontamination room should have all these facilities. So what we have is we can have everything can be done at the bedside of the patient, and the most important thing while doing a gastric decontamination is to prevent aspiration. So we don't have an aspiration, preventive aspiration, there is no point in going at decontamination. So when you will decide to decontaminate the patient?
Yes. If for GI decontamination, if it is less than 1 hour, means we will go for GI decontamination, sir.
Okay. What all methods you have? Gastric lavage, then?
first thing is gastric lavage is there. Gastric lavage, then activated charcoal. Two things.
Okay.
Gastric lavage within 1 hour. We will put a gastric lavage tube, which will be a larger size tube. It will have a mark at 50 centimeter. We will place it at 50 centimeter, confirm the position. Then we will give thorough lavage till we get clear secretion, sir. After that, we can proceed with activated charcoal, sir. Activated charcoal is 1 gram per kg we can give. If we have placed Ryle's tube or anything means we will give through it. If or else patient is stable means we will give orally mixed with some juices, making it
Very difficult to drink directly. So it is better to give it through Ryle's tube.
Yes.
The patient, it is very difficult to palate. The color of the liquid itself is very black in color. So it will be difficult for the patient to consume it directly. So you have to have an alternative option. That's the most important thing.
Then,
Okay.
then
So
as-
one more thing regarding the gastric tube insertion, whether it is applicable for all patients or conscious or unconscious patient.
Sir,
Anything you
if
want to-
unconscious patient means first thing is to secure airways. Definitely airway will secure. Then only we should go for
that's
GI
more
decontamination.
important. Okay, put an endotracheal tube, then you pause it. Okay.
GI decontamination can wait. Airway is the priority. Airway management will be, the patient will die because of a complication in the airway and breathing. Decontamination, maybe after securing the airway, you can go ahead. If the patient is, as I said, the patient is conscious oriented, you can directly go ahead with GI decontamination. But if airway is not patent, you are anticipating in compromise in the airway, secure it, then you decontaminate. That's what sir said. Yeah.
Unconscious patient also the positioning the patient.
Okay. Then.
Okay, during the procedure.
Then we asked for adjuncts, sir.
Decontamination. We have not finished the
Okay, sir. This activated charcoal we will give, sir. Then this is iron activated charcoal, sir. Then
Other decontamination methods?
skin removal of clothes, preserve it in an airtight pack, and if some spillages are seen over body, or usually in upper thorax, we will clean it till secretions are getting cleared,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. So that is a decontamination. Now you have started your primary assessment. Suppose this patient is having a saturation of 80%. On arrival, he is only having 80% saturation. So how will you plan this now? How will you manage this desaturation?
Okay, sir. Usually, if patient is having desaturation with pesticide injection, means there will be secretions in chest and oral cavity, sir.
Okay.
We have to keep the head end propped up at 60 degree
Okay.
and
60 degree will be little bit too much. Maybe 45 degree.
45.
45 degree, that will be ideal. Maybe 60 degree, if possible, yes.
Then we have to put oral suction and clear secretions out. You have to start oxygen via face mask,
Okay.
and your target
Face mask or something else will be a preferred option.
NR.
So whenever you have hypoxia already set in, you start with a high flow device. Then you can come down on it. You can start with a non-rebreathing mask, maybe 12 liters per minute. Is that right, sir? We can start with a
Yeah,
non-rebreathing
NRB,
mask,
yeah.
and we can come down on it further. So you have started on non-rebreathing mask. 12 liters per minute you have started. Then
1 minute. See, in this case, what are the causes of hypoxia? You told about the secretion. Anything else will you suspect?
Bronchospasm can be there, sir.
Good.
Because
Anything
of,
else?
aspiration, because of low
Anything else?
sensorium, aspiration can be there. Respiratory muscle paralysis.
That is more important because the poison itself may cause respiratory paralysis. Just keeping an oxygen mask with 100 liters also it will not be any helpful at all. You have to simultaneously assess the breathing part also. Okay, good. Carry on.
okay, so you have started on oxygen. Then
If then we'll look for saturation target of saturation. Target saturation is more than 94
he
with
is not
norm.
improving saturation.
If respiration pattern, we have to check, as sir said. If respiratory pattern is not improving, then we will plan for definitive.
He is having a tachypnea of respiratory rate of around 40 breaths per minute.
Yes, sir. Then if saturation is not improving, patient pattern of respiration is also not good in our patient. So we will plan for definitive airways, that is
Okay.
endotracheal intubation, sir. In our patient, since we are suspecting organophosphorus compound as a pesticide, usually we will avoid succinylcholine, because if we give succinylcholine, then duration of effect of drug will last for more times. So we will prefer rocuronium or vecuronium as paralytic agent. And other medications as pre-medication, we can give fentanyl of 1 to 2 microgram per kg with induction agent as etomidate as 0.2 to 0.3 mg per kg. We will proceed and we will plan for intubation, sir. during airway management, what extra precaution we have to do is, as we said, there is chance of secretion, so we have to do suction properly, sir.
Okay. Okay. So the patient, you intubated this patient. Now you feel that okay, this patient is having a saturation of 80%. Now, how will you set your ventilator for this patient?
Yes, sir. Initially, since some amount of bronchospasm is there, we have to keep a pressures little bit high. Pressures will be required for this patient to maintain a tidal volume of. Our tidal volume will be 6 to 8 ml per kg will be our target, sir. We will see to it, then according to it we will increase pressure. But we have to keep close monitoring, and slowly we have to come down with our tidal volumes. As the bronchospasm get relieved with our treatment, we can step down with our ventilator strategies, sir.
Okay.
Then aspiration also we are suspecting, so lung protective ventilation we have to do.
Okay. So what will be your FiO2? That will be your initial FiO2.
Sir, as we said, hypoxia is settling in, so first we will keep us high FiO2, then slowly we will taper down.
What will be your PEEP?
Sir, PEEP, bronchospasm is there, so initial PEEP requirement will be higher than normal, then we can come down.
So depending upon the patient response, you get a blood gas analysis, or you can have a continuous ETCO2 monitoring, whatever is available, and depending upon the whatever graphical representation that you are getting from the ventilator, you start with your treatment of your organophosphorus. That we have not yet started. We are just stabilizing his airway breathing, and now we have to have a definitive treatment for whatever compound you are suspecting. So whatever toxic room approach we want to do, we have to do right now. So we have just stabilized the airway breathing and circulation, and we have ventilator and kept the patient in. So now the question arises, what is the definitive management that you need to do in here?
Yes.
Okay, you can start.
Sir, definitive management in organophosphorus compound is
First of all, we need to suspect that it will be a probable organophosphorus.
Yes.
Because all pesticide poisons cannot be organophosphorus.
Yes.
It can be something else.
Yes.
So what will be the classical presentation that you will be able to see?
Sir, classical presentation at initial stages it will be because of muscarinic symptoms. It will be salivation, lacrimation, defecation, gastric emesis will be there, and pinpoint pupil. This will be our initial features of toxicity, sir.
Okay.
And with this 3Bs, bradycardia, bronchoria, and bronchospasm.
Okay, now coming to the 3Bs, bradycardia. How frequently you will encounter bradycardia?
Sir, patient can have 20% of patient can have tachycardia because of nicotinic effects, sir.
Okay, so that is one thing. Also, some majority of the time they'll consume it with alcohol. So alcohol is also a stimulant, so it can increase the heart rate. So one thing is that, and also sometimes the patient can have a normal heart rate also. That also is a possibility. So bradycardia is the classical finding. Normal heart rate and even tachycardia is also a possibility. So always keep in mind, the classical finding may not be seen in a case of organophosphorus, but for teaching purpose we learned that bradycardia. Bronchoria is very important. So again you look for crepitation. Then it will be
this will be initial symptoms.
Okay.
Then
so we have a suspicion of organophosphorus compound. Now we have a patient have come in, he have taken some pesticide, and clinically you are suspecting an organophosphorus. You have stabilized the airway, breathing and circulation, and you have to go for the definitive management.
Okay, so you have intubated, you have put the patient on ventilator. Suppose the patient is having bronchospasm, IE ratio adjustment also should be kept in mind. And how will you manage the bronchoria? It is continuously going on.
Bronchoria, secretions. Secretions, what we can do is suctions. Then once glycopyrrolate, when we start to give, the secretions will reduce the glycopyrrolate and atropine.
Till the secretions are dried, we have to resort to the suction. Every time keeping in mind, the suction itself will be causing hypoxia. So we have to pre-oxygenate, suction, and again re-oxygenate at higher percentage FiO2, and then revert back to the original setting.
Yes.
Okay. Frequent suction may be necessary.
Yes, sir. In investigation part, we will send all blood routine investigation. With that, toxicological samples we have to send, sir. In toxicological samples, we have to preserve both GI sample, serum, blood sample, and urine sample. All three things are needed for our patients.
Okay.
We will send for what usually we are doing is pseudocholinesterase. We will do, sir, and we are expecting a lower limit of normal than normal, which we are thinking, sir.
So now plan regarding our antidote treatment. So we have stabilized them. Now we have to start the definitive treatment. So how will you decide?
Definitive treatment is atropine. If a patient develops any of systemic effect, we will atropine
This patient is having bronchoria.
Yes, sir. Then
Definitely we need to give atropine. So how will you give your atropine?
yes. Atropine, usually two preparations are available. One is in vial, one is in ampule. Ampule will be 1 ml will be 0.6 mg. Vial will be 1 ml will be equivalent to 1 mg.
Okay.
We will keep it. We will give 1 to 2 mg. We will give a start dose, and we will repeat each and every dose every 5 minutes. Then we will check for chest improvement. That is improvement of bronchospasm.
Secretion, crepitation, everything is coming down. Obviously. So then after that
we will check, sir. With that, we will get a cumulative dose of atropine.
For example, the nurse is coming and telling the doctor the heart rate is now 140 and the saturation is 90% and pupil is bilateral 4 mm not reacting. So this is what nurse is coming. You are given your first dose of atropine. Okay, you are given 2 mg of atropine. You said the initial heart rate was 98. Now the heart rate has gone up to 140 and saturation is 90% and the pupils are bilateral 4 mm not reacting or sluggishly reacting to light. So whether you will stop atropine or you will continue atropine. So what is the decision?
Yes, sir. Saturation is still 90% only, sir. Tachycardia and pupil dilation is because of atropine. That is not a definitive thing to stop atropine.
Okay.
What we can do is we can continue with atropine, sir.
So what you should do now? You should use your stethoscope and you see whether there is still crepitation or not, or what is happening to the secretion. The bronchoria is the ultimate end point of your saying the atropinization. It is not your pupil, not your heart rate. So that is a message that we need to pass it on. So unless and until the bronchoria settles, you need to give continuous atropine. Then only you say that the patient has reached the required dose of atropine. From that you need to calculate. So how will you calculate that?
For example, if patient requires 10 mg or 20 mg of
imagine 10 mg. After giving 10 mg of atropine, the patient saturation has improved and the secretion is not there. There is no crepitation. Heart rate may be 140 or pupil may be bilateral 5 mm, whatever be it. So you need to give 10 mg of atropine. So how will you continue giving atropine?
Yes, after 10 mg, we will take 1/3 of it or half of it. Then we will give it as a infusion. That half dose should be going over, sir. It should be given as an infusion over next 24 hours, sir.
There is one thing that you can do. You can give it as a continuous infusion, or you can give it as an intermittent boluses also. Whenever the patient is not having bronchoria, you can give at that point of time. Or if the patient develop agitation, for example, the patient is not intubated. Imagine that he is not intubated, he is on a room air, and what can happen to the patient? He can go for atropine psychosis. So atropine psychosis, what will be your option?
So if patient develops side effects of atropine, that is atropine psychosis, then we have to change it to glycopyrrolate test.
Okay.
Glycopyrrolate, one advantage is it won't cross blood-brain barrier, so this psychotic effects won't be there.
Okay.
And dose is same as atropine, sir.
But the preferred drug will be atropine only. You have to give atropine, but if the patient develop any of the other features, glycopyrrolate is also another option which will not cross the blood-brain barrier. So now your first line management is done. So what will be the next thing?
Next thing, suppose the patient is a 55-year-old man with a history of ischemic heart disease. So what will be the preferred agent for drying the secretions for bronchoria part? So sir told the heart rate is going 140. So in other youngsters and all, it may not be a concern. When there is an ischemic heart disease, history of hypertension, then what will be the choice? You can switch out to glycopyrrolate. Okay.
Again, the message is that already 150 heart rate is there. So again, it increases and increases the oxygen consumption and demand will go up. So ischemic chances are high. So glycopyrrolate will not cause that much tachycardia. So you can switch over to glycopyrrolate at that point of time itself. So these are practice-oriented changes. But initially atropine, then you can think of to change over to glycopyrrolate. So depending upon the patient response. So maybe heart rate is again and again going up, you can switch over to glycopyrrolate, especially a patient with ischemic heart disease, highly prone to develop arrhythmias and all. So next option.
Next option will be oxim, sir. What we can give is pralidoxim. Okay. Pralidoxim has a start dose of 20 to 40 mg per kg. That will come around approximately 1 to 2 gram. We can give us start in 100 ml NS over half an hour. Then we can give us infusion 8 mg per kg per hour. It will go as infusion.
Okay.
That will be.
What is the contraindication? Is there any contraindication to give pralidoxim?
Sir, Pers-
So usually, in a per se, when you have a patient with coming, it can be organophosphorus, it can be a
Yeah.
pyrethroid, it can be a paraquat, it can be anything else. So when you have a classical presentation of organophosphorus and carbamate will have similar presentation. So whether there is any harm in giving pyrrolidocin?
Listen, no harm in giving pyrrolidocin, sir. We can give and we can check, but usually carbamate's toxicity will self-resolve, sir.
Okay. So carbamate, the only problem is that pyrrolidocin may not be needed,
Helpful.
but there is no contraindication to give by pyrrolidocin. So whenever we have a doubt, because whenever you don't have a toxicology facility nearby, or the report is going to take another 48 hours, or you are not very sure what product the patient has consumed, you treat clinically, you give atropine as well as pyrrolidocin. Why we are giving pyrrolidocin? What is the reason behind giving pyrrolidocin?
Sir,
Reactivation of the cholinesterase enzymes.
Okay.
It will
So
be,
what otherwise, if you are not giving oxime, what will happen?
intermediate syndrome, and
The patient will go into intermediate syndrome. What is aging?
aging is whenever patient is consuming OP poison will bind with enzymes, sir.
Okay.
Before this binding happen, we have to give our treatment.
Okay.
Once all OP poison is binding to this enzyme, that is called as aging, sir.
Okay.
Once aging happen, that is irreversible process. We have
Okay.
to wait for generation of new enzymes, sir.
Okay. So one thing is that whenever you don't treat with oxime, the patient will go. We have three phases: the classical, initial,
Initial acute phase,
acute
then
phase,
intermediate syndrome,
intermediate syndrome,
then
and delayed
neuropathy.
So intermediate syndrome is just like the small cranial nerves will start getting affected, and delayed polyneuropathy, the patient will have foot
Foot
drop
drop.
and all those things. So if the patient develops into intermediate syndrome, that means the initial phase management was not appropriate. So if the patient has come directly to you, and if you are given the correct drugs at the correct time, usually they should not go for an intermediate syndrome. To prevent that, we have to definitely give pyrrolidocin. So whenever you have a doubt in mind, okay, whether to give or not to give, you go ahead with pyrrolidocin, and once the toxicology report comes and you feel that it is carbamate and you are able to get within 24 hours or 12 hours, you can stop pyrrolidocin. But whenever you have doubt in mind, there is no harm in continuing pyrrolidocin. Okay. So now we have managed the antidote part. Now the next question arises is that what are the other general aspects that you need to take in care of this patient? Electrolyte imbalances, seizure management.
Yes.
How will you do that?
If opioids, in OP poisoning, serious effect can happen is seizures. Seizures, drug preferred will be benzodiazepine. Usually it is diazepam, sir. 5 to 10 mg we can give as for seizure management, sir.
Okay.
And in general management, as we said, patients secretions, and secretion is the one we have to be careful.
There can be electrolyte disturbances, all those things, because you are giving infusions. Sodium disturbances can be seen, potassium, all those things can be seen. And most importantly, you need to catheterize this patient. This patient, the problem is that you are already going to give atropine, and they can have something like a subacute intestinal obstruction also. So constipation can be a problem. So all those things you need to keep in mind. And most importantly, any role for antibiotics.
Sir, if usually these patients whom are consuming atropine, they will mix with some other thing, for example alcohol, and whenever you are receiving a patient in low sensorium, there is a possibility of aspiration, sir. In such case, we have to start antibiotics, sir.
So what will be a preferred agent? Empirical antibiotic therapy for a patient. For example, this patient who was conscious oriented, but you think that he might have aspirated. So what will be a preferred agent?
Preferably penicillin, augmentin penicillin.
Anything penicillin will be enough. Gram positive, it will have good anaerobic coverage also. So keep in mind that you need to start the patient on an antibiotics. So next question arises whether you need to intubate the police or not.
Sir, suicidal attempt per se, we can keep everything in documentation, sir. But if a patient dies, then it will be a medical legal case, sir.
Okay, so definitely whenever you are documenting, you document it very well. Like keep the referral letters ready when the patient has received the initial treatment. What are the circumstantial evidences? What all is that? You keep it everything available. But unless and until the patient have any things like the patient is going to die or anything, definitely you need to intubate and you need to make it as a medical legal case. Otherwise, suicide attempt, as you said, suicide attempt as have been removed from the this thing, but there are still something need to be done in the IPC that needed to be done. Is there anything to be added on, sir?
Okay. See, what are the manifestations of atropine psychosis? We should be able to diagnose.
Hallucination,
How the patient-
agitation,
hallucination.
restlessness.
Okay.
Then other effects of overdose will be there.
Okay.
atropine delirium, agitation, sometimes they are uncontrollable, very difficult to control. He will have self-activation if you don't paralyze the patient and adequately sedate also. Good presentation, good.